evening and welcome to the Thai PBS World. To consider economic policy in Thailand, especially in the past 10 years, it focused a lot on economic growth and it's quite successful in terms of increasing GDP more than 32%. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that it will correspond with increasing level of happiness of Thai people. And the Institute of Public Policy and Development, or IPPD, new think tank of Thailand, has done research on these two indicators between economic growth and happiness. And I talked to Managing Director of IPPD. What's the implication of the two economic indicators? Your research on future of Thai people, you focus on happiness. But you have shown us that even though Thai economy has improved tremendously in the past 10 years, but actually happiness of Thai people declined. So what's the implication of your research findings?
Yeah, thanks Dr. Natha for this terrific question. We at IPPD, we are a national think tank and we begin by just asking a very simple question on what exactly Thailand should target on, right? We usually think about development as GDP and economic indicator. That means we focus really on growth, on productivity and on competitiveness. We really care on what is the percentage of GDP growth. From what we learn after we start to look closely at GDP and happiness, we learned that over the past 10 years, our GDP seemed to increase by 32.7%. By contrast, our well-being and happiness seem to be decreased by 3.2%. This simple fact already illustrates the point that while we getting better on the economic front, our basic thing in our life, like how happy we are, how satisfied we are with our life, seem to be lagging behind.
So does that mean economic growth alone is not enough, but well-being is more important? So what will be reflection or what should be the future of public policy in terms of this at least two indicators between economic growth and well-being of the people?
To clarify the point, this is not to say that GDP is no longer relevant. We still think GDP is a very powerful and good indicator. But what we're saying that we should start to look beyond just GDP, beyond just economic growth. We should start looking at how happy and how living well in terms of like be able to live our life well, see brighter future, and other things like our mental health, our family issue, right? This indicator and this attribute might not be well reflected in GDP. So I would say that today would be the day that we, and together with our partner, want to start saying that might be a good time that we start thinking and looking beyond economic growth, beyond GDP, and what exactly people say in terms of, we call it equation of happiness, right, or happiness equation. We want to and we should understand what exactly are components within this equation. And also you might be able to guess that different people have different equations, right? For someone, they might say that income seems to be so important for their happiness, while other people may say income seems to be okay and important, but not as important as family attribute, might not be as important as security or certainty, right? We learned that people in different provinces, people in different walks of life seem to have different way to spell out happiness equation without really understanding what people really think and want. We might not be able to have a targeted policy that be able to address the policy challenges and things that seem to be much more complex these days.
But in the current situation, the crisis of COVID-19 has shown that people are suffering very much economically. So what should be public policy or the policy in order to help alleviate this kind of trouble, especially during this crisis?
Another terrific question. We had this very similar question when we did the theme called Thailand Economic Monitor, the World Bank theme report launch just a few months ago. And what we discussed is we usually think about economy and life as two separate things. We're thinking, oh, this should be some kind of measure to address economic problem. And then you should thinking about public health measure to address public health problem like how to prevent the spread of the viral infection and COVID, right? What we want to advocate is it might not be kind of just yes and no and going one way or the other. Not to say that we need to select economy or we need to select life, right? It's not economy versus life, not economy versus livelihood, but we should start thinking about what kind of policy measure that could balance on addressing economy and life at the same time.
For IPPD, you have to focus a lot what's next for the future. But you can see it's full of uncertainties at the moment, COVID-19, economic gloom, or political tension. So what would be like hassle for researcher to lay groundwork for future of Thailand, in which you have to offer recommendation to public policy or public policy makers. So how do you come across or how do you overcome this difficulty of world which is full of uncertainties at the moment to look at the future?
This is one of the best questions we have, and we already asked this very question ourselves as well. IPPD is not a fortune teller organization, right? We are not here to predict what's going to be happen in 5 years, what's going to be happening in 10 years. What we really want to do is to allow people to be able to think and see that if this happen, then what they're going to do. And then they should learn that life is full of surprise and uncertainty, right? But see surprise and uncertainty in an optimistic way. Today, from the research that we work with National Statistical Office, we learned that only 23.9% of Thai people seem to be optimistic about future. They think that when they wake up and see the future, the future seems to be brighter for them. But the rest seem to not see the same thing. Some of them see exactly the same, meaning that they don't see the future to be brighter. And we have 11.4% of Thai people who say that they think that future could be worse. So this is another different thing, right? If we want the society to be happy and healthy, we should enable our people to be hopeful. Hopeful in a sense that they should see and feel that their future would be better. The future of Thailand for their baby, right? Their children, their grandchildren should be better as well. This would be a very complex question. So I would say bottom line would be we are not here to predict the future. We are here to be part of the whole network of organization to enable Thailand to be ready for the future.
And that's all from Thai PBS World tonight.